All right, we're back with the president of the International Well-Building Institute. Rachel, great to see you again. And one of my favorite questions, I've found in my life, influencers I've seen from me and others have come in all sizes, shapes, colors, you name it. Sometimes they come for a split second, the right time. Sometimes they last a lifetime. It'd be great if you can share 1, 2, 3 people that have been influencers for you.
Yeah, I'm going to give you a couple of influencers at both ends of the spectrum. If you knew me well, you would know that I am completely ignorant when it comes to matters of celebrity and influencers. It's a part of mainstream media that I started tuning out when I was 15 or 16 years old and realized that reading teen magazines was making me feel bad about myself. And so, in the grand scheme of like real influencers, I think that we have a troubled relationship with influencer culture right now. And that's been really underscored by the pandemic, where people are taking their public health guidance from an Instagram celebrity, and yet if we don't get wise to understanding the art of the influencer and how to deploy them, I think we've missed an opportunity to create some fundamental shifts in our society. So all that aside, my influencers will never be typical or traditional influencers, certainly not the kind that gets you special status on, Instagram. I would say on the one end.
By the way, I'm not surprised. So this is great.
There are a few that cut through the noise for me. So over a drink one day, I'll tell you about some of my mainstream celebrity crushes of sorts. But most of them are the ones that are really changing the world. That's kind of what turns me on in terms of thinking about the personalities that I want to be aligned with. So I'll tell you, on one end of the age spectrum, I've been thinking a ton about both of my grandmothers, who I believe were part of rearing one of the earliest generations of children who didn't see diversity as a negative, didn't see otherness as a threat. And I credit my grandmothers with that legacy. One of my grandmothers was the first in her family history and thousands of years as a Chinese person to marry someone who wasn't Chinese. And she chose my grandfather, who was like white as the day is long, with red hair and blue eyes and freckles. And she lived through a lot of the challenges of being the first mixed race couple to be in both families. And then my mother as the very first offspring in a family that now stretches across over 200 living members, the Wong family. We were supposed to be at the reunion this coming weekend, but of course canceled because of the pandemic. My mother also faced a lot of racism, a lot of aggression, a lot of microaggression, but the grit that came up, and as a result, the person that she became. And then on the flip side, on the other side of the family, rather, my other grandmother, she was raising 2 boys as a widow from a very young age, the only Jewish people in the town, with a lot of sort of otherness in a different way that they were contending with. And yet, the only thing I called dibs on after my grandmother passed away was this series of 4 paintings that she had hunted down, one of Black children playing, one of Native American children playing, one of Asian children playing, and white children playing. And she had gone to such great lengths to get all 4 of these because she saw it as a celebration of culture. And I remember, bringing home different boyfriends and girlfriends over the years of different races and of different financial backgrounds and cultural backgrounds, that my grandmothers were so proud that they would have a granddaughter who, would not see those differences as some kind of weakness. And then on the other end of the age spectrum, I'll just say that I feel like many of my greatest teachings come from children, and they influence me in ways big or small. We started out one of our conversations today talking about how much we miss hugs, and a 4.5-year-old said to me the other day, "I miss hugs, but it's okay because you can hug your family." And I just thought, like, this is the way that I want to end every day, is like with words of wisdom coming from a 4-year-old. We were going for a walk collecting flowers in the neighborhood, and she stopped all of a sudden because at the end of the street there was a big group of people, and I said, "What's wrong?" And she said, we can't go there because coronavirus. And it's just like these small ways in which I'm observing our younger people taking in this world and the ways in which they're channeling this new reality. For me, it's so pure, and it's also really inspiring and influencing.
You're amazing. That's why I love asking this question. That's tremendous grandmothers and family. And, you know, I was at a diversity and inclusion event a while back before all this, and they asked people, who are the only ones in the world that have no prejudice whatsoever? And you know what the answer is? Babies.
Yes. Yeah.
And then it changes, even to the point if the baby goes to the mom and an African-American nurse comes in and the mom gets tense, for example. I'm not saying that would happen,
Mm-hmm.
or what, and the babies feel it, and that's when they start learning about it.
Right.
And so kudos to you.
I think that's why we have to think of these shifts as generational, you know, that was the legacy for me, of my grandmothers and my grandfathers. And that was the gift that was passed down to me from them and from my parents. And it's allowed me to live my own life without fear, you know, that I could have a Black boyfriend, that I could have a Mexican girlfriend, you know, whose father was incarcerated at the time that we were dating one another. Like my parents they really didn't have any judgment. And I remember them saying, you want to tell yourself as a parent that you won't have judgment, but you never really know until you're in that position. And man, did I hold my parents' feet to the fire, because I've just dated a lot of people who they defy any kind of, people say like, do you have a type? And the answer is no, absolutely not. And I think my record shows it, that my parents were always so incredibly welcoming of every partner that I've ever had. And I do feel like that gift came across a series of generations, that it's not something that was born overnight, but when we apply our attention as parents and as caretakers of our children, that we can actually make that pivot in history. And I hope that that's another big step forward that we've taken over the last couple of months. I hope to see that momentum continue.
Yeah, I think there will be dramatic change there. And that goes full circle back to what I first asked you, is what differentiates you as a leader who cares? And you just substantiated that. So thank you for sharing all that. It's you're lovely.
Thank you. And you are lovely. Next time in person, okay?